Maya Chen walked through the corridors of the Galactic Academy with her head down, clutching her datapad against her chest like a shield. Other students barely noticed her as she passed by, just another quiet human among thousands of alien species from across the galaxy. Her black hair fell across her face, hiding the sharp intelligence in her dark eyes. The academy was massive, a floating city in space where the brightest minds from every known civilization came to study. Towering Centaurians with their crystalline skin chatted in harmonic frequencies. The snake-like Vorthak slithered past in groups, their scales shimmering under the artificial lights. Furry Keltharian cubs played in the recreation areas while their elders discussed philosophy. Maya found her usual spot in the library's furthest corner, away from the social clusters that formed naturally around the main study areas. She opened her quantum mechanics textbook and began reading, her fingers moving silently across the pages. To anyone watching, she appeared to be just another struggling student trying to keep up with the advanced curriculum. Professor Zektar, an imposing draconian with midnight blue scales, entered the library scanning the area. His yellow eyes eventually found Maya in her corner. He approached slowly, his claws clicking against the metal floor. "Miss Chen!" His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "I need to speak with you privately." Maya looked up, her expression neutral but alert. She followed the professor to his office, a space filled with artifacts from dozens of worlds. Ancient weapons hung on the walls alongside scientific instruments and star charts. "Sit down, Maya," Professor Zektar said, settling behind his desk. "We need to discuss your real identity." Maya remained standing, her posture shifting almost imperceptibly. The change was subtle, but Professor Zektar noticed it immediately. The nervous student was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. "I don't know what you mean, Professor," Maya replied, her voice steady. "The Galactic Council has been monitoring unusual activity in the Outer Rim territories. Entire pirate fleets are disappearing without a trace. Criminal syndicates that have operated for centuries are simply vanishing overnight. The only thing these incidents have in common is that they all happened near systems where you were supposedly on field research trips." Maya's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's quite an accusation." Professor Zektar leaned forward. 3 months ago, the Bloodclaw pirates attacked a civilian transport near Kepler 442b. 73 innocent beings were killed, including a family of Centaurian refugees fleeing a war zone. 2 weeks later, every single member of the Bloodclaw pirates was found dead on their hidden base on asteroid XJ7. No survivors, no witnesses, just perfectly executed eliminations. "Pirates face many dangers," Maya said quietly. "Rival gangs, territorial disputes, mechanical failures in deep space." "The forensic analysis showed something interesting," the professor continued. "Each pirate was killed by a different method, but all showed signs of being hunted. The terror in their final moments was evident. Someone had systematically tracked down every member of a 50-ship fleet across multiple star systems and eliminated them one by one." Maya finally sat down, her movements fluid and controlled. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because the Galactic Council needs the Shadow Hunter." The name hung in the air between them. Maya's expression didn't change, but her fingers drummed once against her knee, a tiny tell that Professor Zektar had learned to recognize. "The Shadow Hunter is a legend," Maya said. "Stories told by criminals to frighten each other. A boogeyman that supposedly hunts the worst scum of the galaxy. The legend says the Shadow Hunter appears as an ordinary human, unremarkable and easily overlooked. They say she can track prey across light years, that she knows every hiding place in the galaxy, and that once she marks a target, nothing can stop her from completing the hunt." Maya stood up. "I should get back to my studies. I have a xenobiology exam tomorrow." "The Devourer cult has taken hostages." Maya stopped at the door, her hand on the frame. For the first time, real emotion flickered across her face. "They're holding 300 civilians on a research station in the Andromeda approach," Professor Zektar continued. "Families, children, scientists working on medical breakthroughs. The cult believes that consuming intelligent life extends their own lifespan. They've given the Galactic Council 72 hours to deliver a shipment of rare genetic material, or they start killing hostages." Maya turned around slowly. "And the Council's response? We can't negotiate with them. It would set a precedent that would endanger billions. But a direct assault would result in massive civilian casualties. The station is heavily fortified and surrounded by a minefield. Any approach would be detected hours before arrival." "So, you need someone who doesn't officially exist to handle a situation that officially isn't happening," Maya said. Professor Zektar nodded. "The Council has authorized me to make contact with the Shadow Hunter. We're prepared to offer full pardons for any past vigilante activities, along with official sanction for future operations against high-priority targets." Maya walked back to the desk and picked up a small holographic projector that showed the research station. She studied it for several minutes, her eyes moving across every detail of its structure and defenses. "The Devourer cult operates in cells of 7, she said finally. They use biological weapons and prefer close-quarters combat. Their leader, Kareth the Glutton, has cybernetic enhancements that make him incredibly difficult to kill through conventional means." Professor Zektar's eyes widened. "You've encountered them before." 5 years ago, they attacked a medical facility on Titan 7. They killed 47 patients, including children receiving treatment for genetic disorders. They ate their victims while they were still alive. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Maya's voice remained calm, but Professor Zektar could sense the cold fury beneath her words. "None of the Devourer cult members from that attack lived to see another sunrise," Maya continued. "I made sure they experienced the same terror they had inflicted on those children." "Then you'll accept the mission?" Maya set down the hologram and looked directly at Professor Zektar. For a moment, he saw past the facade of the quiet student to the predator beneath. Her eyes held the kind of cold calculation that had made entire criminal organizations whisper her name in fear. "I'll need a ship, untraceable equipment, and complete operational autonomy," she said. "No council oversight, no check-ins, no backup teams that might compromise the mission." "Done. And I work alone." "Understood." Maya headed for the door again, then paused. "Professor, how did you really know it was me?" Zektar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Your first day here, a Vorthax student was bullying a young Keltharian. You didn't intervene directly, but that night the bully transferred to a different academy. When I investigated, I found that someone had accessed his personal files and discovered evidence of his family's involvement in illegal weapons trafficking. That evidence was anonymously sent to law enforcement on his home world." "Bullies rarely change on their own," Maya observed. "Indeed, you've been protecting the innocent here just as subtly as you hunt the guilty out there. It's what makes you the perfect weapon for the Council's purposes." Maya opened the door. "I'm not a weapon, Professor. I'm a hunter. And the Devourer cult is about to learn the difference." As she walked back through the corridors, other students saw the same quiet girl they always ignored. None of them noticed the predatory grace in her movements or the way her eyes automatically tracked potential threats and escape routes. Maya Chen, the reserved student, was already gone. In her place walked something far more dangerous. The Shadow Hunter was going to war. The stealth ship Silent Dawn cut through space like a whisper, its advanced cloaking systems making it invisible to conventional sensors. Maya sat in the pilot's chair, her eyes scanning multiple displays showing the Andromeda research station growing larger in the distance. The massive structure rotated slowly against the backdrop of swirling nebula clouds, its docking bays and observation decks lit by thousands of windows. She had spent the past 18 hours studying every piece of intelligence the Galactic Council possessed about the Devourer cult. Their psychological profiles, tactical preferences, known hideouts, and most importantly, their weaknesses. Maya memorized the station's blueprints until she could navigate its corridors blindfolded. The research station housed nearly 800 people under normal circumstances, but the skeleton crew scheduled for this rotation meant only 300 souls were trapped inside with their captors. Maya's jaw tightened as she read the passenger manifest. Families with young children, elderly scientists working on breakthrough medical treatments, graduate students pursuing advanced degrees in xenobiology. "Scan complete," the ship's computer announced in a neutral tone. "Detecting 47 life signs consistent with Devourer cult physiology distributed across 7 primary locations within the station. 312 potential hostages confirmed." Maya nodded grimly. 7 cells, exactly as expected. The cult's rigid organizational structure would be their downfall. She pulled up a 3-dimensional hologram of the station and began marking the locations where her enemies were positioned. The cult had chosen their defensive positions well. Each cell controlled a critical system, ensuring that any direct assault would result in massive casualties. They held the life support systems, the communications array, the reactor controls, and most importantly, the hostage areas. But Maya wasn't planning a direct assault. She activated her equipment lockers and began preparing for infiltration. The Shadow Hunter's arsenal wasn't filled with massive weapons designed for open warfare. Instead, she carried tools of precision and stealth. Molecular edge blades that could cut through any material without making a sound. Neural disruptors that could incapacitate targets instantly. Adaptive camouflage that could mimic any surface or lighting condition. Maya sealed her combat suit and checked her oxygen recycler. The suit was a masterpiece of human engineering, incorporating technology that had taken decades to perfect. It could regulate her body temperature, filter toxins from the air, and even provide basic medical treatment for injuries. More importantly, it made her virtually undetectable to most scanning systems. "Beginning approach to Station Section C7, she whispered into her comm unit. "Maintaining radio silence from this point forward." The Silent Dawn's docking clamps engaged with barely a whisper of contact. Maya had chosen an abandoned maintenance bay on the station's underside, far from the areas where the cult was likely to monitor. She moved through the airlock like smoke, her movements so fluid they seemed almost supernatural. The station's corridors were dimly lit, emergency lighting casting long shadows that Maya used to her advantage. She consulted her mental map and headed toward the first target, a cult cell positioned near the reactor core. Taking out their technical experts would limit their ability to threaten the station's power systems. Maya moved through the ventilation shafts, her enhanced hearing picking up conversations from the rooms below. The Devourer cult members spoke in their native language, a harsh series of clicks and growls that most species found disturbing. But Maya had studied their linguistic patterns for years. "The humans will come with their warships," one cultist was saying. "When they do, we will feast on the crew as well as the hostages." "Kareth grows impatient," another responded. "If the genetic material does not arrive soon, he wants to begin the consumption ritual early." Maya's grip tightened on her blade. The consumption ritual was exactly what it sounded like, a slow and torturous process that kept victims alive as long as possible while the cult fed on their life force. She had seen the aftermath of such rituals before, and the memory fueled the cold fury that drove her forward. She found the reactor room's ventilation access and peered down through the grating. 3 cult members were positioned around the massive energy core, their reptilian bodies covered in ritual scars and cybernetic implants. They wore armor made from the bones of their previous victims, a practice that made them easily identifiable but also provided surprising protection. Maya dropped silently into the room behind the largest cultist. Her blade found the gap between his spine and skull in one precise motion, severing his nervous system instantly. He collapsed without making a sound. The second cultist turned at the soft noise, his enhanced senses detecting something wrong. Maya was already moving, her camouflage making her blend with the reactor's shadows. She struck from the side, her neural disruptor sending controlled electrical pulses through his brainstem. He fell paralyzed but conscious, unable to cry out or move. The third cultist activated his communicator, but Maya's throwing knife embedded itself in the device before he could speak. She closed the distance in 3 quick steps, her movements too fast for his augmented reflexes to track. A precise strike to his carotid artery left him unconscious within seconds. Maya zip-tied the surviving cultists and disabled their cybernetic enhancements with a specialized electromagnetic pulse device. They would wake up helpless and terrified, exactly how their victims had felt. She moved to the reactor controls and began installing a small device that would give her remote access to the station's power grid. "Reactor secured," she whispered to herself, marking the first cell off her mental list. The next target was communications array, where another cell was monitoring for rescue attempts. Maya made her way through the station's maintenance tunnels, avoiding the main corridors where patrol routes might expose her position. She passed several areas where hostages were being held, and the sound of muffled crying made her pause. Through a viewport, she could see families huddled together in what had once been the station's cafeteria. Parents held their children close, while elderly researchers tried to offer comfort despite their own fear. Maya counted the guards. 4 cultists with energy weapons positioned at strategic points around the room. She forced herself to move on. Saving one group while alerting the others would doom everyone. The Shadow Hunter succeeded because she thought strategically, not emotionally. Each target had to be eliminated in the proper sequence to maximize the hostage's chances of survival. The communications center was heavily fortified, with blast doors that had been welded shut from the inside. Maya studied the problem for several minutes before finding her solution in the station's original construction plans. A forgotten access tunnel used during the initial building phase ran directly beneath the communications equipment. She crawled through the narrow space, her enhanced senses mapping the room above through vibrations and electromagnetic signatures. 5 cult members were present, including what appeared to be their technical specialist based on the sophisticated equipment she could hear being operated. Maya planted explosive charges at precise points along the tunnel's ceiling, calculating the exact amount of force needed to incapacitate without destroying critical systems. The charges detonated simultaneously, dropping sections of the floor and creating chaos in the communications room. She emerged from the breach like an avenging spirit, her weapons already in motion. 2 cultists died before they understood what was happening. The technical specialist reached for an alarm trigger, but Maya's electromagnetic pulse disabled every piece of equipment in the room. The remaining cultists tried to coordinate their response, but Maya had studied their tactical patterns for years. She knew they would attempt to form a defensive triangle, leaving their backs exposed to crossfire. She used their own strategy against them, positioning herself so that their shots would endanger their own teammates. Within minutes, the communications center was secured. Maya downloaded everything from their computers before destroying the equipment they had been using to monitor Galactic Council frequencies. The cult's intelligence advantage was gone. "Communications down," she noted, checking her chronometer. 43 hours remaining. Maya moved deeper into the station, hunting her prey through corridors that had become a maze of terror. The Devourer cult had turned a place of learning and discovery into a feeding ground, but they had made one critical mistake. They had threatened innocence in the presence of the Shadow Hunter. The reserved girl from the academy was a memory now. In her place stalked humanity's greatest predator, and she was far from finished with her work. The cult's remaining cells would learn what their predecessors had discovered too late. There was nowhere in the galaxy to hide from someone who hunted not for profit or glory, but for justice itself. Maya disappeared into the shadows once again, leaving behind only the silence of eliminated threats and the growing fear of those who remained. The hunt was just beginning. Maya crouched in the ventilation system above the station's central hub, watching as Kareth the Glutton paced before a group of terrified hostages. The cult leader was massive even by devourer standards, his body a grotesque fusion of organic tissue and cybernetic enhancements. Tubes ran from his skull to a portable life support system that processed the stolen life force from his victims. Through her enhanced optics, Maya could see the true horror of what Kareth had become. His arms had been replaced with mechanical appendages designed for restraining prey. His jaw had been surgically enhanced to accommodate rows of razor-sharp teeth. Most disturbing of all, transparent sections of his torso revealed organs that belonged to multiple species, trophies taken from previous hunts. 36 hours remain, Kareth announced to his captives, his voice amplified by speakers embedded in his throat. The Galactic Council tests our patience with their delays. Perhaps a demonstration will motivate them to respond more quickly. He gestured to his remaining subordinates, who began separating children from their families. Maya's hands tightened on her weapons as she heard the screams of parents being torn away from their young ones. Through her scope, she could see tears streaming down faces of beings from dozens of different species, all united in their terror. The youngest among you contain the purest life force, Kareth continued, his mechanical eyes scanning the hostages with predatory hunger. We will begin the consumption ritual with the little ones, allowing their parents to witness the fate that awaits them all. Maya had seen enough. She activated a series of small devices she had planted throughout the station during her previous infiltrations. Lights began flickering in patterns that created disorienting shadows. Ventilation systems started producing random noise that masked her movements. Temperature controls shifted unpredictably, making the cultists uncomfortable and paranoid. "Something is wrong," one of the remaining cult members hissed. "The station's systems are malfunctioning." "No," Kareth said slowly, his enhanced senses detecting what his subordinates could not. "We are being hunted." Maya smiled grimly at his perception. The cult leader's reputation for cunning was well earned, but recognition of danger would not save him. She had eliminated 43 of his followers across the station, leaving only Kareth and his 6 personal guards between the hostages and freedom. She dropped a small device through a maintenance hatch that released a cloud of specialized pheromones, chemicals that would interfere with the devourer's enhanced olfactory senses. To beings who relied heavily on scent for tracking and communication, the disruption was like being suddenly struck blind and deaf. "Defensive positions," Kareth commanded, his voice betraying the first hint of uncertainty. "Form a circle around the primary hostages. Kill anyone who approaches." Maya watched as the cultists moved into their practiced formation, but she had already anticipated their response. During her reconnaissance, she had studied their tactical preferences and identified their weaknesses. The Devourer cult's strength came from their brutal efficiency in group hunts, but their rigid hierarchy made them predictable. She began her final assault not with weapons, but with psychological warfare. Maya's voice echoed through the hub's speaker system, seeming to come from every direction at once. "Kareth the Glutton," she said, her tone carrying the cold promise of death. "You remember Titan 7, don't you? The children you tortured while their parents watched helplessly?" The cult leader's mechanical eyes darted around the room, searching for the source of the voice. His subordinates were clearly agitated. their predatory confidence shaken by an enemy they could not see or locate. "You consumed 47 innocents that day," Maya continued, "but you made one mistake. You left witnesses. A security guard who survived long enough to send out a distress signal. He spoke your name before he died, Kareth. He made sure the galaxy knew who was responsible." "Show yourself, coward," Kareth roared, his amplified voice making several hostages cry out in fear. "Face me in honorable combat instead of hiding like a scavenger." Maya's laughter filled the air, a sound devoid of warmth or mercy. "Honor? You speak of honor while threatening to murder children? You forfeited any claim to honor the moment you chose to become a predator of the innocent." She activated the electromagnetic pulse device she had prepared, sending a targeted surge through the station's power grid. The lights went out completely, plunging the hub into absolute darkness. But Maya had prepared for this moment. Her enhanced vision allowed her to see perfectly, while her enemies stumbled in confusion. The first guard died before he realized the attack had begun. Maya's blade found his throat with surgical precision, silencing him permanently. The second guard heard his companion fall and began firing energy blasts randomly into the darkness, the bright flashes temporarily illuminating the chaos around him. Maya used his own weapon's light against him, timing her movements to remain in the shadows between his shots. She struck from behind, her neural disruptor sending him into convulsions before he collapsed. His weapon clattered across the floor, adding to the cacophony of noise that masked Maya's position. "She's picking us off one by one," one of the remaining guards whispered. "Just like on asteroid XJ7 with the Bloodclaw pirates." "Silence," Kareth commanded, but Maya could hear the fear creeping into his voice. "Maintain your positions. She is only one small human." "No." Maya's voice drifted through the darkness like a ghost. "I am what humans become when you threaten what we protect. I am the nightmare that follows you across the stars." She threw a flashbang grenade into the center of the cultists' formation, the brilliant explosion temporarily blinding and deafening them. In the confusion that followed, Maya moved like liquid death, her weapons finding their targets with inhuman precision. 2 more guards fell before their enhanced vision could readjust. The remaining cultists fired desperately in every direction, their shots illuminating brief glimpses of their hunters. But Maya was always one step ahead, using their panic and disorientation against them. When the emergency lighting finally activated, only Kareth and 1 guard remained standing. They found themselves surrounded by the bodies of their fallen comrades, while Maya stood calmly between them and the hostages. "Impossible," the surviving guard breathed. "No single being could move that fast." "You're right," Maya said, her weapons held casually at her sides. "But I'm not just any being. I'm human. And humans have a very particular response to those who prey on the innocent." She moved with inhuman speed, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to dodge the guard's energy blasts while closing the distance between them. Her blade found the gap in his armor, and he collapsed with a look of complete disbelief. Kareth backed away, his mechanical arms extended defensively. "You cannot defeat me, human. My enhancements make me stronger than any organic being." "Your enhancements make you predictable," Maya replied. "I've studied your modifications, Kareth. I know exactly how they work and precisely how to disable them." She pulled out a small device that emitted a specific electromagnetic frequency. Kareth's cybernetic systems began sparking and failing as the pulse interfered with their control circuits. His mechanical arms locked in place while his life support systems struggled to maintain function. "The children on Titan 7 couldn't fight back," Maya said, walking slowly toward the helpless cult leader. "They were helpless and afraid, just like these hostages. Do you remember their faces, Kareth? Do you remember their screams?" Kareth tried to speak, but his vocal amplifiers were failing along with the rest of his systems. Maya could see the terror in his organic eyes, the same fear he had inflicted on countless victims over the years. I remember every single one, Maya continued. Their names, their ages, their dreams that you destroyed. And I promised them that their deaths would not go unpunished. She raised her blade, its molecular edge gleaming in the emergency lighting. This is for every innocent life you've taken. Every family you've destroyed, every child you've terrorized. The blade found its mark with surgical precision. Kareth the Glutton, the monster who had terrorized the galaxy for decades, fell without dignity or honor. His cybernetic enhancements powered down one by one, leaving only the corpse of a creature who had chosen to become something less than living. Maya turned to the hostages, who were staring at her with expressions of shock and awe. She activated her communicator and sent a coded signal to the Galactic Council, confirming that the crisis was over. "You're all safe now," she said gently, her voice completely different from the cold promise of death she had used against the cultists. "Rescue ships will be here within the hour. Medical teams are standing by to treat anyone who needs care." A small child, a Keltharian cub who couldn't have been more than 5 years old, approached Maya hesitantly. "Are you an angel?" the child asked in halting galactic standard. Maya knelt down to the child's level, her expression softening. "No, little one. I'm just someone who believes that the innocent deserve protection." As the rescue ships arrived and the hostages were safely evacuated, Maya prepared to fade back into anonymity. The Shadow Hunter's work was done, and Maya Chen, the quiet student, would return to her classes at the academy. But Professor Zektar was waiting for her at the docking bay. "The Council has another mission," he said quietly. Maya looked out at the stars, where countless worlds held countless innocents who might someday need protection from the darkness. "Tell me about it." She had found her purpose among the stars. The reserved girl in the halls would continue her studies, maintain her quiet facade, and blend into the crowd of students. But when the innocent called for help, the Shadow Hunter would answer. The galaxy's most dangerous predators had learned a valuable lesson. Humans might seem small and unremarkable, but when their protective instincts were awakened, they became something far more terrifying than any monster the universe had yet produced. Maya Chen walked back into the academy's corridors, just another student returning from a field research trip. But the children sleeping safely in their beds across 1,000 worlds would never know how much they owed to the quiet girl who had chosen to become their guardian in the darkness between the stars.